Good morning and happy Friday. It is beautiful outside. It is the end of a great week that we celebrated and appreciated all of our teachers. So hopefully you made all of your teachers feel very appreciated, meaning you were very thankful towards them and grateful for all that they do to help you learn and grow, especially this year, which was a little bit tricky. So I picked a book this week called Dr. DeSoto, and you can kind of see what kind of doctor he is by looking at the picture. It looks like that might be a little familiar to you if you've been to the dentist, and hopefully all of us have been to the dentist, but we have had a record number of teeth fall out this week. Like, I don't know what's happening with those teeth, if brothers or sisters are helping you pull those teeth out, but we seem to have a record number of teeth being lost this week. So this seemed like a good one to have Dr. DeSoto, who is a dentist, if you weren't sure. And the title is Dr. DeSoto, and it's by William Stagg. And it is also a Newbery Honor book, and it's won some other awards as well. So it is a very decorated, we'll say, story. So Dr. DeSoto, and if you weren't sure if he was a dentist, you can kind of see on that cover page, he is working in someone's mouth. And if you notice, let's see, Dr. DeSoto, the dentist, did very good work. So he had no end of patients. Those close to his own size, moles, chipmunks, etc., sat in the regular dentist chair. But there were larger animals that had to sit on the floor while Dr. DeSoto stood on a ladder. So he, if you can tell, is a mouse, but he still works. He's such a good dentist that animals from all over come to see him. So if he has to work on a larger one, like a pig there, he has to get on a ladder, but he is still able to do it. For extra large animals, he had a special room. There, Dr. DeSoto was hoisted up to the patient's mouth by his assistant, who also happened to be his wife. So look at that. So he still finds a way, even if it's a larger patient, like that looks like a mule or a horse, to reach them. Dr. DeSoto was especially popular with the big animals. He was able to work inside their mouths wearing rubber gloves he put on his feet to keep his feet dry, and his fingers were so delicate and his drills so dainty that they could hardly feel any pain. And that's a good kind of dentist to go to, right? When I go to my dentist, I hardly even notice when he's cleaning and working on my teeth. So hopefully you have a good dentist like Dr. DeSoto. Being a mouse, he refused to treat animals dangerous to mice, and it said so on his sign. It says, Dr. DeSoto, dentist. Cats and other dangerous animals not accepted for treatment. So when the doorbell rang, he and his wife would look out the window, and they wouldn't admit even the most timid-looking cat. So if it says they wouldn't admit even the most timid-looking cat, you can kind of figure out what timid means, right? So they say no cats, but even if it's timid looking, they're still not taking it. So meaning timid, even if it looks safe and harmless, they're still not doing it. But one day when they looked out, they saw a well-dressed fox with a flannel bandage around his jaw. I cannot treat you, sir, Dr. DeSoto shouted. Sir, haven't you read my sign? But look at how sad that fox looks. And he's got a bandage wrapped around his jaw. Please, the fox wailed, have mercy, I'm suffering. And he wept so bitterly, it was pitiful to see. Just a moment, said Dr. DeSoto. That poor fox, he whispered to his wife. What shall we do? Let's risk it, said Mrs. DeSoto, and she pressed the buzzer and let the fox in. Do you think that was a good idea to let him in? I will say, if you've ever had a toothache, it is very painful. So I can understand if the fox is in a lot of pain, because if your tooth hurts, It can be really painful, but is it a good idea for Dr. DeSoto, a little mouse, to let in a big fox who eats mice for their meals? Let's see. He was up the stairs in a flash. "Bless your little hearts," he cried, falling to his knees. "I beg you, do something. My tooth is killing me." "Sit on the floor," said Dr. DeSoto, "and remove the bandage, please." I'm a little nervous for Dr. DeSoto. Dr. DeSoto climbed up the ladder and he bravely entered the fox's mouth. "Ow!" he gasped, and the fox had a rotten bicuspid and unusually bad breath. "Uh-oh, this tooth will have to come out," Dr. DeSoto announced, "but we can make you a new one." "Just stop the pain," whimpered the fox, wiping some tears away. And despite his misery, he realized he had a tasty little morsel in his mouth, and his jaw began to quiver. "Keep open," yelled Dr. DeSoto. "Wide open," yelled his wife. So as he's working, he's so appreciative to Dr. DeSoto, but he also realizes it'd be like having a piece of chocolate in your mouth, right? And going, "Oh, but it's so tasty," and trying not to eat it, but it's so hard. And Dr. DeSoto and his wife are like, "You keep that mouth open." "I'm giving you gas now," said Dr. DeSoto. "You won't feel a thing when I yank that tooth." So sometimes if you've ever been to the dentist, they might give you a shot, or they might put a little mask over your face to kind of relax you when they're pulling out the tooth. So that's what they were doing. He said, "You won't feel a thing when I have to yank that tooth." And soon the fox was in dreamland. Yummy," he mumbled. "How I love them raw with just a pinch of salt." Uh-oh, what do you think he's thinking of? He's dreaming and he's thinking of what he likes to eat with some salt. They could guess what he was dreaming about. Mrs. DeSoto handed her husband a pole to keep the fox's mouth open. Dr. DeSoto fastened his extractor to the bad tooth. Then he and his wife began turning the winch, and finally, with a sucking sound, the tooth popped out and swung, swaying in the air. So they finally got that tooth out there. "I'm bleeding," the fox yelped when he came to, and Dr. DeSoto ran up the ladder and put some gauze in his tooth where the hole was. "The worst is over," he said. "I'll have your new tooth ready tomorrow. Be here at 11 sharp." And the fox, still a little woozy, said goodbye and left. On his way home, he wondered if it would be shabby of him to eat the DeSotos when the job was done. That is not a good idea. After office hours, Mrs. DeSoto molded a tooth of pure gold and polished it. "Raw with salt indeed," muttered Dr. DeSoto. "How foolish to trust a fox." "He didn't know what he was saying," said Mrs. DeSoto. "Why should he harm us? We're helping him." "Because he's a fox," said Dr. DeSoto. "They're wicked, wicked creatures." That night, the DeSotos lay awake worrying. "Should we let him in tomorrow?" Mrs. DeSoto wondered. "Once I start a job," the dentist firmly said, "I finish it. My father was the same way." "But we must do something to protect ourselves," said his wife. And they talked and talked until they formed a plan. "I think it will work," said Dr. DeSoto, and a minute later he was snoring. So what do you think is their plan to make sure that the fox doesn't decide to eat them after he puts in his new tooth? The next morning, promptly at 11, a very cheerful fox turned up. He was feeling not a bit of pain. When Dr. DeSoto got into his mouth, he snapped it shut for a moment, then opened wide, laughing. "Just joking," he chortled. "Be serious," said the dentist sharply. "We have work to do." And his wife was lugging the heavy tooth up the ladder. "Oh, I love it," exclaimed the fox. "It's just beautiful." And Dr. DeSoto set the gold tooth in its socket and hooked it up to the teeth on both sides. And the fox caressed the new tooth with his tongue, Do you do that when you go to the dentist? I love going to the dentist when they clean your teeth and everything feels just so shiny and smooth. I always wring my tongue around the teeth, and it just feels so good to have like your teeth cleaned and all fixed up, right? So he's kind of doing the same thing. He's caressing the new tooth. Oh, it feels so good, he thought. I really should eat them. On the other hand, how can I resist? I mean, I'm a fox and they're mice. We're not finished, said Dr. DeSoto, holding up a large jug. I have here a remarkable preparation developed only recently by my wife and me. With just one application, you can be rid of toothaches forever. How would you like to be the first one to receive this unique treatment? Do you think that might be the trick that the mice have up their sleeve? Oh, I certainly would, the fox declared. I'd be honored. He hated any kind of pain. You will never have to see us again, said Dr. DeSoto. No one will see you again, said the fox to himself, and he had definitely made up his mind he was going to eat them with the help of his brand new tooth. Dr. DeSoto stepped into the fox's mouth with a bucket of secret formula and proceeded to paint each tooth. He hummed as he worked, and Dr. DeSoto stood by the ladder, pointing out spots he had missed, and the fox looked very happy. What do you think's on there? When the dentist was done, he stepped out. Now close your jaws tight, he said, and keep them closed for a full minute. And the fox did as he was told, but then he tried to open his mouth, but his teeth were stuck together. Excuse me, I should have mentioned, Dr. DeSoto said. You won't be able to open your mouth for a day or two. And the secret formula must first permeate the dentine. So it just means that when it says permeate, it means like be absorbed into. So, but don't worry, no pain ever again. So it's just for a few days that the fox won't be able to open his mouth. The fox was stunned. He stared at Dr. DeSoto, then at his wife. They smiled and they waited. And all he could do was, "Thank you very much," because he couldn't open his mouth, through his clenched teeth, and get up and leave. He tried to do so with dignity. Then he stumbled down the stairs in a daze, and Dr. DeSoto and his assistant had outfoxed the fox, and they kissed each other and took the rest of the day off. So they had to come up with a way, even though he's a fox and even though those mice are helping him, he couldn't help it. He's like, I gotta eat him. But they outsmarted him and tricked him and were able to still help him while fixing his teeth and making sure they didn't get eaten. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that story. I hope you all have a great weekend. It's Mother's Day, so hopefully everyone treats their moms extra special and good, moms, grandmas, aunts, all of our people who play a role in our lives that are like moms. So remember, be extra good, be extra helpful, help them out, and make it a special day for them. All right, see you later.